there's something incoherent in this position. And so now what I want to talk is about how Ayn Rand thinks about the issue of free will, and that there's an important way that she looks at it that is different, and different, say, than the way Harris is looking at it, and the typical kinds of examples that, well, I have to save for college or save for a house, versus I'm going to buy a computer, I'm going to make myself tea in the morning, I'm going to make myself coffee in the morning. These decisions about a particular, I'm going to put it as a particular item of content, tea or coffee, saving my money, spending it on a computer. That if that's all you have when you're thinking about the issue of free will, you're not going to get what the control is that a person actually has over his life. So one of the key insights, and one of the things I think, to remember from my talk, if you remember anything, is that there's a different perspective in objectivism and in Rand on the issue of free will. That she thinks you need to rethink the issue and look at it in a different way. So the different way is, she thinks we're looking at in the wrong place, or the wrong aspect of the way we use our mind. That it's not primarily about an issue of content. So about save or buy a computer, order vanilla ice cream or chocolate, make yourself tea or coffee. It's about the functioning or the processing that your mind engages in. So it's not about an issue of content, primarily, free will. It's about the actions or the processing that your mind engages in or doesn't engage in. That's what you have basic and fundamental control over. And it will then color the decisions you make and reach and the choices that you make about particular items of content. Say, are you going to save your money, or are you going to splurge and buy the new Mac computer? Those are made in the light of something and in the context of you having activated your mind or not, or put it. So this is in terms of thinking of the processing that is going on, or the activity that is going on. One of the ways, because what Rand thinks in terms of free will, the basic issue is to introspect, so to become self-aware of the control that you have over your own mind. So it's to observe that you do and can exert this kind of control over your mind. So what we're trying to do is put into words and language to conceptualize activity that we engage in and over which we have control in our own minds. And one of the ways to do that, I think, is because we only have access and awareness, we're self-aware, we have an awareness of our own mind, not of the functioning of other people's minds. One of the ways to try to put it into words and to conceptualize, and when you're first doing it, is in terms of metaphors or analogies to things in the external world that more than one person can observe and so on. So the title of the talk, Seizing the Reins of Your Mind, is a metaphor. Now, I don't know what's happened to the PowerPoint, but we've lost all the images. So I had an image here of a horse with reins. It is that you have a control you can put, so there's various kinds of analogies or metaphors that she gives. You can put your mind in gear. So if you think in terms of a car, that it's in neutral, it can't go anywhere. If you put it into gear, you're putting it's ready for motion. It's a basic set that you can now engage in activity, you can direct it. In terms of thinking of a horse with reins, it's galloping, there's some activity going on. To seize the reins means you can take control of that activity. And that is the basic control that you have over your mind. So take the example of Harris's example. You're going to save for your, let's just put it, you're going to save for college, or are you going to spend by a computer, a Mac computer you're tempted on? Rather than it being, well, just one of these desires happens to win out, and I find myself either at the bank depositing my paycheck in the bank, or I find myself at the Mac store buying a computer. And it was like, it's inexplicable. How did one of these won? Maybe next time the other one would win. Who knows what's going on? Rather than thinking of it like that, what actually happens? What can you introspect? If you're actually making a decision about it, there's all kinds of activity that you're controlling about. So for instance, like, why am I trying to save money? Why am I tempted by this computer? Is it that just I like always having the latest gadget, so this is one more thing, and this is exactly why I set a budget, because I know I'm always doing this kind of thing, and I'm never going to save for college if I do that. And you can think about it. And you can assess and think, yeah, this is exactly why I set this budget, and yeah, I'm going to not resist that temptation and not buy it. Or it could be, well, like, why am I tempted? Well, my current laptop is junk. I spend all kinds of time waiting for it to boot up, and it crashes at various times. It would make a lot of sense for me to buy the computer. So even though I am trying to save, I'm going to try to do it in other areas, because this is something that I actually need. There's a reason I feel tempted to buy it, because I actually need this, and it's really detrimental to me not to have it. You can engage in that kind of activity, that kind of thinking, that kind of and then it's not inexplicable. It's not mysterious why you do one or why you do the other. But it's not, now we're not talking just about the content. We're talking about the activity or the processing that your mind is engaging in the face of this. And that, Rand thinks, that is under your control. That is what you have choice, and it's the sort of the primary, or it's the locus of choice. That is what you can control. So one way she puts it, so in terms of this example, it's that you can think about it, and you can ask yourself questions, and you can direct your mind. So one of the ways she puts it, that the basic choice, and Dr. Brooke put it like this yesterday, is that you can think or not. But that's thinking is a process, it's activity. And that's what you can set in motion and direct and control, or you cannot do that. So that's one way, and that's not a metaphorical use. So seizing the reins, setting your mind in gear, or metaphors to capture the issue that there's activity. But we're talking about mental activity. And the primary mental activity in that regard is in terms of thinking. But she'll put it another way, that you can set your basic, you can put it your basic activity or processing of your mind. You can put it as another way. You can set your basic level of alertness or awareness. So she will often put, you can set your level of focus. And focus is meant to think, it's an aspect of the awareness of your mind. It's trying to capture the quality of that awareness. So just if you think not at the level of thought, but sort of at the precursor of the level of thought, of sensory perception, and particularly if you think in regard to visual perception, there's an issue of things can be in focus, the world can be in focus, where you're grasping a lot of what is going on. You're taking in a lot. Or it can be relatively out of focus, that things are blurry, foggy, that you're not taking in a lot. Now, this is, I mean, for a normal person in a normal functioning brain and sensory perceptual system, you open your eyes, and if it's not the first thing in the morning, you open your eyes and the world's in focus. If you've ever had a blow to the head or something like that, if I had once rollerblading, wiped out, hit my head on concrete, and I got what this metaphor of seeing stars, that was the first time I got what that meant, because the world was like blurry. You couldn't discern much. So that's, you can't, it's not, your awareness is not in focus. So it's capturing a quality or an aspect of that awareness. If you're thinking in terms of visual perception. And she thinks that same phenomenon of things can be relatively in focus for you when you're thinking, when you're using your mind, now not your sensory perceptual system, but your mind. There's the same kind of difference of things can be in focus or relatively out of focus. But at the level of the mind, or at the level of thinking, that's under your control. That is a state you can choose or you can will. That you can put yourself in focus, in partial focus, or not in focus. And one way to think of it, so I put it, when you're in focus, you grasp a lot of the world. You can think of it as a readiness to deal with the world in the way that you're capable, or in the best way available to you, or the way that you're capable of doing. And that's why there's a way in which focus is more fundamental than thinking, because it's not that when you're in focus you have to be thinking. The norm, I think, is that you're in some sense thinking, but it's the quality and the level of your awareness and alertness that is under control. And again, it's in terms of the activity or processing of your mind, not primarily in terms of the content that you're making a choice between. That's a later kind of thing, and it's part of the whole thinking process, but it's not the essence of it. The essence is the quality and the activity going on. And